Iran has condemned the European Union for imposing new sanctions over its response to anti-government protests. The EU announced measures targeting Iran's state broadcaster, its army chief, Revolutionary Guards commanders and an Iranian cleric. Protests have swept Iran since the death on September the 16th of a young Iranian Kurdish woman in police custody. Now, courts in Iran have sentenced 11 people to death in connection with the ensuing protests. The first two people were executed in the past week. More than 18,000 Iranians have been arrested, including close members of the family of Ayatollah Khamenei. Now, his niece is one of the supreme leader's sharpest critics.
It's difficult to get a full picture of life in Iran right now. But when a video is published, the eyes of the world are on it. Not since the Islamic Revolution have the Iranian people made their voices heard so loud and clearly, and at such great risk to their lives. Among the fiercest critics, the supreme leader's own niece. Farideh Moradkhani has spoken out harshly against her uncle and called on foreign governments to cut all ties with Tehran. Oh, free people, be with us and support us so that your government stops supporting this murderous and child-killing regime. Dangerous words in the Islamic Republic, words she was arrested for. Farideh Moradkhani is currently in jail in Tehran, where, according to her lawyer, she'll spend the next 3 years. Opposition to the supreme leader runs in the family. Farideh Moradkhani's late father was a prominent critic of the Iranian regime. Her brother is an activist living in exile in France. This branch of the Ayatollah's family doesn't want anything to do with his hardline religious policies or his crackdown on dissent. The unrest in Iran has been going on for 3 months, and the rage on the streets has only increased. In this video, people in Tehran can be heard chanting, "I'll kill whoever killed my brother," and "Death to the dictator," after a man was executed for his role in the protests. It's tiny glimpses into Iranian life like this one that show that the ultimate deterrent isn't enough to silence the Iranian people or the Ayatollah's own family.
Now, as we just heard, the niece of Iran's supreme leader is one of his harshest critics, and so is her brother. Activist Mahmoud Moradkhani has lived in Paris for more than 20 years. He was the one who published her video message to the world. Moradkhani sat down for an exclusive interview with DW's Farsi department, and he told us what makes these last 3 months of protests so important.
The youth of Iran have now realized that what this regime said about the former regime was a lie. They have told many lies, and now they are lying about their daily routines, about the economy, about everything, and of course, about political issues. They kill people in the street, and then they say those people had a stroke and died.
All right, I believe that we can now speak to Hadeh Ghaemi. He is the founder of the Center for Human Rights in Iran, and he is joining us now from New York. Welcome to DW. We heard the Ayatollah's own nephew there saying that the people of Iran are no longer afraid of the regime. Would you say that that is true?
Absolutely, and I think that is the message that the international community needs to hear. That this movement, these protests are absolutely different than previous ones. Of course, they are related, but they have entered a new stage, and we need to really have new policies in this regard.
We know that already 2 people have faced the death penalty in the last week. Is that something that do you think will deter people from taking to the streets and continuing this protest movement?
Well, they're trying. They're very much trying. That is one of the ultimate goals of these executions. But let's also note that over 480 people already been killed on the streets in front of this protesting population, including 60 children. And it may, on short term, for a day or two, cause a lot of intimidation. But I think the wave of protest will come rolling back. And I just want to emphasize that particularly the European Union needs to be prepared to have different policies than just imposing sanctions.
You mentioned the children who have been caught up in this. Now, we are hearing that children are among those who've been arrested, who are being held as political prisoners. What else can you tell us about that?
Indeed. We know there are, we're not sure of the total number, but we know that there are at least over 18,000 people in general being detained over 3 months, and around 10,000 of them remain in prison, and hundreds of them are children under the age of 18. And there's a lot of concern for them.
I want to go back also to what you were saying about the European Union. Do you think that the new sanctions imposed on the Islamic Republic by the EU will help? And does the regime in Tehran actually even care about its image on the world stage?
Exactly. Look, these sanctions are necessary but not sufficient. They should continue as needed, but they cannot become the core of the policy. What we really need now is a very strong message that is tangible to Iranian government. And I highly recommend that the European Union, as well as other countries with ambassadors in Iran, should be pulling out their ambassadors in tandem together back to their capitals and demand a moratorium, immediate moratorium on capital punishment before these ambassadors go back, and to constantly call on Iranian ambassadors in Europe daily to foreign ministries and register protests and concerns. And furthermore, there should be a very strong will to take the case of Iran selling drones to Russia in violation of Security Council resolutions to the Security Council, and together with the violence against women and children. These are all causes that should be discussed at the Security Council.
Khadeh Ghaemi, founder and executive director of the Center for Human Rights in Iran. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you for having me.